Hey, what is going on YouTube? Aaron here. We are back on the Mac Boys, and oh boy, do we have a video for you guys today. As the title indicates, we're going to talk about the issue with Will to Rebuild. And before you grab your pitchforks, just let me explain. But the other important topic in this video, and we're going to go over that first, I will timestamp the Will to Rebuild issue down below if you want to skip it. But what we're going to talk about is how to avoid fire spam. Now, this game does not really end that exciting, but the beginning of this game teaches a lot of principles and has a lot of values that you can learn if you want to. To how to avoid the fire spam. Now we are in the Montana, and that is just a big, juicy target for a lot of these fire spammers. And if you will kind of notice right off the rip, our middle spawn is leaving us. Tommy Boy and I had a very similar game where he was in the battleship and I was in the cruiser of the exact same situation, and he did an excellent job. If you want to check out that video of how to hold your weak side, and basically just hold. Braveheart, hold, brothers, and not just give up. So if we YOLO in here against the 6-on-3, which is what this map becomes, we die. So what I'm doing here is I'm positioning my battleship. I'm angling against other battleships, and I place myself in a way to where I can escape quicker if we do fall into if we fall into the trap of the HE spam. And very shortly here, we actually notice a Cleveland that pops up, and like I said, it becomes a 6-on-3. So our destroyer is doing a great job, but here becomes here's that Cleveland, and we don't really have a shot on the Summers. And number one of how to not be HE spammed is kill the HE spammers. Now, a good cruiser player is going to hide behind an island, and I just love when I hear battleship mains who take pictures in their Ford F-150s say, "We'll just come out from behind your island and be a man." And if you understand this game whatsoever, you just know that that's kind of a silly statement because cruisers do not have the armor or the guns to deal with battleships. So anytime I am in a cruiser, you will find me behind an island unless the situation calls for me to be aggressive or I can bow tank that battleship. Now, and if you don't follow those principles, you're not really playing the game correctly. But in the meantime, like I said, we're taking shots at available targets, and of course, there's a little bit of a problem with overpens. We did get a nice, 9K salvo on that Cleveland, but in all honesty, that should have been like 10 or 20K. We caught him nose out. We had enough pen and enough angle to arm a lot of our shells, and that's why I don't really love playing battleships. You catch a cruiser like that. A cruiser makes a mistake, and he never pays for it. It's part of the game. It's RNG, I know, but that's just the frustration with me. So if Wargaming were to adjust RNG, or adjust the armor to, the shell to armor interaction to where a Cleveland or a light cruiser paid a lot more, especially when angled, then, I think that would be a start. And like I said, we've got three little adjustments that we could make a suggestion here too. With one being will to rebuild, the second, the will to rebuild saturation issue, destroyer concealment, and cruiser's range. But as I said, we're going to talk about that towards the end. In the meantime, well, let's talk about number one of how to avoid taking massive amounts of damage from fire spamming cruisers. That is to not put out a single fire. If you notice here, we got put on a single fire, and we're just going to let it burn. One fire on a battleship with 90,000 health is not going to do anything. Also, you'll note we take a shot at the destroyer when we can. I think I might get one over pen or just miss here because it was an auto-aimed shot. But like I said, as we mentioned earlier, anytime you can take a shot at a destroyer, you should do so. So as we're just kind of sitting here, we're doing our job as a battleship. We are drawing the fire of 3 to 4, 5 ships here. There's a Baltimore, a Cleveland, a Kurfürst, and another battleship shooting at us on the outside. And if you notice, we just got torps sent at us from the Summers. Now, those could have been just missed targets as the Summers has some long-range torps. But we're doing our job. And a lot of people are like, well, you're actually at the back of the map. And yes, I am at the back of the map. If you notice, we have the weak side, and we're getting spammed by absolutely everything. So we actually just got placed on a double fire here, so we went ahead and put that out. I could have read the situation a little bit better because we are getting focused by a lot. And as RNG would have it, we actually get placed on a double fire the moment our damage con goes down, which is just in typical RNG fashion. Also, you'll notice that we switched targets to the Baltimore, and the reason being is the Baltimore is a radar cruiser. We have a friendly destroyer here, and he is within radar range. So there's that double fire. But anytime you can take a radar cruiser off the board, that is 1,100 billion make up a number, percent your job as a battleship. It is not to lob shells over the other targets to get, 5K off of an angled Kurfürst. Anytime you see a radar cruiser that is making a push, or really anytime you see a radar cruiser that is not, 30 kilometers behind the nearest objective, you should shoot at it. That is your job in a battleship. It is also your job to tank and take damage. So we have kind of done that, but again, we're going to reposition here, and the rest of this game is kind of just me, avoiding getting truly spammed while still creating a crossfire. If you notice here, you'll notice it later on during, in about 60 seconds or so. The enemy ships move on to B, but since we are still holding this position, we are able to crossfire them. Creating crossfires in this game is going to net you much better results. I know a lot of people like to move up and bow tank, and I'm guilty of that myself in certain situations, with different ships. But if you kind of think about and are constantly saying, okay, how can I create this crossfire? How can I reposition? Another little strategy we use right here is I did not shoot at that, I think Cleveland was spotted for a brief second. I'm not going to shoot here. I'm going to wait for a good opportunity because number one, we're broadside to these battleships. And number two, when you reposition like this, the other cruisers don't really know where you are. If you're moving and repositioning constantly, now I'm not saying shoot once and then spend the next 8 minutes repositioning just for a broadside shot. You should be shooting your guns constantly. But a reposition here allows us to get a nice, beautiful broadside on this Cleveland and nearly dev strike him. Again, it should have been a dev strike, but we know RNG is RNG. And honestly, this game kind of finishes out that way. We get second in terms of XP. We don't really do that much damage, and we do get a fireproof medal. So avoiding the HE spam is very easy if you know how to play the ship. Now, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes you will get HE spammed. That's how it works. Enemy cruiser players play very well. And as we mentioned before, part of the problem with the game is cruisers' range. I think they have too much range. They don't really have too much range, but Wargaming has nerfed the ranges of battleships, as you see us absolutely obliterate the broadside of that Cleveland and nearly dev strike him. Cruisers have too much range for Legends. If they were to increase the range of battleships, then the range of cruisers would be fine, but they tried to nerf this game into a smaller version, and there's a few balancing changes that I think they could adjust. And the first one that we really need to talk about is Will to Rebuild. There was a post on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, the CCs, they just play the cruisers and they don't understand and things like that. And guys, I understand the game. I had a video on this map on the opposite side where two battleships were will to rebuilding each other, and I was in a Conqueror and HE spamming them. And there is a saturation issue in this game. For example, when you shoot all of the HP off of a superstructure of a ship and they are under will to rebuild, that ship basically becomes invincible. It does not reheal the ship's health. The HP of certain parts of the ship, for example, the superstructure. So once you saturate that superstructure, that's it. That your battleship is now invincible, and people abuse that perk. I do not think that is fair. I do not think that is balanced. If Wargaming were to address that and maybe reduce different factors of will to rebuild, then I think it would be a great perk for battleship players, especially ones who play more aggressive and are with teammates, and not just sitting at the back of the map to invincibility perk activated. Because if you're in a cruiser and you need to kill that ship, or even in a Conqueror, I could not kill a Massachusetts. That was, like I said, I lost the video, but it's on this map, and I think a lot of you remember because it was just broken. We saturated all of his superstructure, and he was basically able to, he was invincible. There was nothing we could do. He was bow tanking us, so our AP was going to do nothing. We could not get enough fires to tick him down. He played his damage cons correctly, and it was a good play on him in the current state of the game, but in all reality, we should have killed him very easily. Another frustrating part is we had teammates who were not taking crossfires on that. So in the situation when it arises, will to rebuild needs to be adjusted in that fact. You cannot be, you should not be invincible in this game. I don't care, how American or stubborn or manly you think you are. But come out and fight like a man. But to counter that, I know that is going to upset potentially a lot of battleship players. I think the concealment of destroyers still needs to be looked at. There should not be destroyers sailing around at sub 5 kilometers able to drop, torps that do 300k alpha strike on battleships. I think that is a huge problem, as well as, like we mentioned, the range of cruisers. Cruisers should not be sitting at 20 kilometers, the same range as battleships, able to HE spam. Now, though, I know there's different perks and builds and things like that. And with refill station, a few of my ships actually get up to 17 or 18. So I'm a little guilty of that myself. But if we were to address all of these issues in one and decrease the amount of overpens, I think we could easily reduce the invincibility of Will to Rebuild. And Wargaming is looking at it. And I also don't know, I don't know if I mentioned it in this take of the video or not. I've taken it a few times, but the community contributors do not have a that much of an input, if any, into the development decisions of this game. Wargaming is going to do what they want to do, regardless of what we think or not. So to say that, like, all these CCs are complaining about Will to Rebuild and it's going to get nerfed, that's just inaccurate. There is a problem with the saturation issue that is being looked at, and I think they will adjust it. For example, once you kill that superstructure health, if you activate Will to Rebuild, I think it will regenerate, and I think that is a very easy and fair fix right off the rip. But this, like I said, this is the end of the video here. Not really an impressive game. We had 100,000 damage. We finished second on the board, but the principles of the game are what really matters. As you can see me just kind of give the old classic RNG shrug there. But there's the fireproof, and you can see me just kind of talking in the background here on this on this live stream highlight. But that is the video, guys. Let me know what you guys think. I know a lot of people are huge fans of Will to Rebuild, and I have absolutely abused it myself. There's a game in the John Bart where I should have 100% been dead, but the perk of Will to Rebuild gave me invincibility, basically, and I think that needs to be adjusted. When you have one perk that is so strong, I think it is unfair to the other players, as you guys can see my recommended videos here. But that is the video, guys. Let me know what you guys think down below. Yeah, is Will to Rebuild just absolutely broken? What's going on? Do you guys like it? Do you want it to change? Aaron out. Peace.